Dee doo dee doo doo dee doo 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 dee doo dee doo doo dee doo dee doo doo dee doo 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 dee doo dee doo doo. Hey there, everybody. My name is Steve Kozanowski, and you're watching Cause and Effect. Welcome back. It's been a little while since my last video, but at the request of my fellow blogger, Carrie Beckort, today I'm going to be talking a little bit about how to use Twitter. Now, I am by no means a Twitter power user, superstar, or even very good at it. It's a little confusing. It's not my favorite social media platform. I'm a much bigger fan of Facebook, but Twitter is useful and it has its uses, and it's, obviously has the capacity to change the world. It's been responsible for the Arab Spring, changes in the Ferguson riots, all kinds of breaking news comes off of the feed in Twitter. And if you can harness it and you can get control of it, it can, really affect your life. Or if you just want to treat it like, a fun dumping spot, it can be a fun dumping spot. So I'm going to assume that you can figure your way out around, creating an account. We'll just start from the point that you already have an account. We'll talk about some of the, tips and pointers that I've picked up over my, 4 or 5 years using Twitter here. So here we have my notifications page, which tells me all the stuff that's recently happened on my feed that's, directly affected me. Basically, somebody tagged my handle or did something that reached out and affected me. Over here we have home, and this is what you'll call your news feed, I guess. And what the home is it's the stuff that everybody else that you're following is tweeting. So you see here I'm following 10,300 people, give or take. And they're just in that few seconds that I've been talking, out of those 10,000, they've tweeted or retweeted 20 new things. And this will keep going, and you can go through here and see whatever everybody's talking about. Then they have this moments, which, I don't really use, but this is kind of like a Twitter's answer to the news feed, which Facebook is also doing, where you can, see what's going on, stuff about American Idol, that kind of thing. And then we looked at notifications to start with, and then messages. And what the direct messages is this is sort of like an email program, if you want to think of it like that. But of course, you're limited to 140 characters, just like you would be with a tweet. So a lot of people set this up to send you a direct message or a DM when they are, they will often set it up to automatically go out. So a lot of my DMs, sometimes I talk to my publisher at Mirror Matter Press through DM on Twitter, but otherwise a lot of these are going to be, it's kind of rare to speak to people on DM on Twitter. It's just a little odd. It's a little clunky. And you're limited to 140 characters, so usually for any kind of meaningful interaction, you'll just want to ask for someone's email. Even if you reach out on Twitter, you may just say, oh yeah, please DM me your email. But why your messages box will still be filled up is because a lot of people, set it up to send your automatic stuff. So here you can see, here's some kind of porn spam bot, and here's some kind of crowdfunding stuff, and this is a lot of this is just like junk, essentially. But I can't ignore my direct messages because, like I said, sometimes my publisher will reach out, sometimes people will reach out to me for an interview or, something like that. The thing about DM is you have to be following and be followed back. So you can't DM, Stephen King or Stephen Colbert or, someone like that unless they're following you back. But you can tweet at them. And you can say, please DM me, and then the understanding is they'll have to follow you back, that sort of thing. So let's take a look at my profile. So what this is this is what you would see if you logged in and looked at my profile. This is what you would see, and of course I can see it too. So again, here we have my name. I have a little canned thing here, my location, my website that I want everyone to know, and join February 2011. Over here we have my stats. So I've tweeted 12,000 times. I'm following 10,300 people. I have just shy of 10,000 followers. I've liked 4,000 things, and I have one list. Now, about following and followers, you should at least be aware. It's kind of silly, but I'm kind of look like a loser right here because you're not supposed to have more. You're not supposed to be following more people than are following you. So ideally, like I said, if you look at someone like Stephen Colbert, who I think that is Stephen at Home, and he's a pretty good example. If we can get him to come up. So he's following 35 people. 10 million people are following him. Okay, obviously I'm not on The Late Show, but you typically want typically a sign of success is to have lower following than followers. However, that being said, you should also understand that it's common courtesy to do what we call follow back. So if I look at my followers and you wouldn't be able to see this. Well, you could click on my follow. Yeah, you could actually see this. So it's common courtesy to follow back, and it looks like I've just been doing it kind of mindlessly here because I typically try not to follow back the bots. I mean, you see here is when people say buy Twitter followers, hot deals, that kind of thing. Those are just bots. Yeah, they look like a real person, but this is not really Sasha Gillespie. They probably stole this picture from someone. Okay, but okay, so I've pretty much followed back everyone who's followed me, going back and even back to this crowd dance, which is probably junk, but you know, whatever. Following back is pretty common courtesy here. So what you would do is when you get a notification that someone has followed you, and like I said, I would typically ignore the bots like Sasha Gillespie here, but what you can do is you can follow them right back, and that's considered common courtesy. So knowing that, let's talk about one of the ways that you can build up a following here. So let's say, like I said, I'm at almost, 10,000 people here, and I want to get more followers. The amount of people that you can follow is limited. So when you first sign up, you first make your Twitter account, you're limited to following 2,000 people. And then once you've hit that hard limit, you have to have 2,000 people following you back before you can follow more. And then as you grow and as you expand, it gets kind of geometrically larger, the amount of people you can follow. So as you can see here, I can follow something like 500 people more than are following me when you're at around the 10,000 mark. So I there's some kind of algorithm on Twitter for how they determine that. I don't know what it is, but it's around 500 at this point. So it might be at 5,000, at 100,000, or it might be 50,000. I don't know. It could be geometric. Who knows? I'm sure this is all very proprietary. But let's say that I want to get more followers. So one thing that you can do, like I said, because following back is common courtesy. If you follow people, the odds are that a certain number of them are going to follow you back. Okay? So let's say I go here to search for Twitter, and I'll do a search for, something that's up my alley. So let's say that we search for horror author or something like that. Okay? And then you'll do a search, and what you can do is you can go here to accounts, and what'll come up is everybody that has an account with horror author in their name. Okay, so here you see there's a couple I'm already following, our good friend Devin Saliani, Jim Goforth, and all these kind of people. Here's a couple I'm not following. So let's say I follow them back. La-di-da-di-da-di. I don't know any of these people. I mean, I know Eloise, I know Jim, and the people I'm actually following. I don't actually know any of these people that I'm not following back. But so here's what's going to happen. I just followed, 4 or 5 people here that I don't necessarily know. Now the odds are that out of those 5, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 are probably going to follow me back. Okay, and that's the way that you can build your your fan base. So instead of going and searching for horror author and following 5 people, you can go out there and you can follow 2,000. Your first day you can follow up to 2,000, and maybe 1,000 will follow you back. Okay, so then you have that problem where you've hit a hard limit and you can't go any further. So what do you do? Well, in theory, you could go back to your following. You could open up one page with your following. You could open up another page with your followers. And then you could compare the two and go through line by line and see who's following you, who's not following you back, who you're following. And basically it would take forever. So what I would recommend that you do is start an account with another service. For instance, Manage Flitter is the one that I use. So there's a couple of services like this. Manage Flitter works just fine for my purposes. And what the Manage Flitter does is it will tell you who is not following you back. It'll give you a couple of other options for people like no profile image, non-English, and what it determines to be fake or spam, which don't take this as gospel, because sometimes it determines things to be fake or spam that is just, like it'll be like a personal friend of mine. And I'll be like, oh wait, I know this person, I know they're not fake or spam. But the not following back, that's pretty rock solid here. I mean, all it's doing is it's using a program to compare these two lists for you. So if you go in here, now in the case of Manage Flitter, if you have an unpaid account, you can unfollow up to 100 people a day. So you're going from your beginning to your end. Okay, so I have here 17 pages, so there's 1,700 people, or 1,601 it looks like, who aren't following me back. So if I went out and I followed 2,000 people and 1,000 followed me back, I'd end up with 10 pages here, and over the course of the next 10 days I can walk back that number to where it's more reasonable. So, I have 1,000 to 1,000. Then I can go out and I can follow more people and try to get more followers that way. And this is basically, unless you have a big, viral tweet, or unless you're actually genuinely famous, or, you're Ashton Kutcher, Stephen Colbert, or somebody, this is one way that you can, build your followers. And, you just have to log in. I think it's every 24 hours, Manage Flitter will let you log in, unfollow 100 people. And you can do it based on the not following back. Then you do want to bear in mind, if there's somebody that you do want to be following, like Ashton Kutcher or the president or somebody, they're not going to be bothering with following you back. So you want to make sure that you're not unfollowing them if it's somebody that you actually want to do. Now, if it's Phil Jimenez, who I don't know, or Liftfly or UPitch app, or whoever these people are, I can just unfollow them. It's whatever. And part of it is that in this case, in this scenario, I have given these people 16 or 17 days to follow me back. So yeah, no, I don't expect you to log into your Twitter necessarily and follow back everybody that same day. I'll give you 2 weeks. But if I've given you 2 weeks and you're not following me back, and you're not somebody that I independently want to be following, maybe I'll dump you. So, I know it sounds a little callous, but that's one way that you can, that's one way that you can have Twitter followers more or less organically. And like I said, it's a little bit of dirty pool, but it's much less dirty than buying followers or, any of that other kind of stuff that goes on Twitter. I just like to think of it as, you're kind of reaching out, you're kind of doing a little bit of research. Another thing you can do is, if there's somebody that you admire, you want to be like, so let's say we look at, my hero, Brian Keene here. I can look at his list. So here you see what's up with Keene. He has that kind of, very positive following to follower ratio here. He has 11,000 followers, but he's only following 690. So I can figure this is probably a really well curated list, and it's probably, some top tier, horror authors and publishers and that kind of thing. So I might want to be following some of these people, you know. And on the other hand, I might also say to myself, well, the people that are following him, and since this is a much larger well to draw from, there's 11,000 of them here, these are probably the kind of people that are horror fans. If they're following Keen, then they have an interest in, zombies and horror. So these may be the kind of people that I want to try and reach out with and follow them and see if they like my stuff and follow back and that kind of thing. So that's what we're doing with, kind of building a list, at least, semi-organically, that kind of thing. Now let's dial back and talk a little bit. We talked about following back. Like I said, I tend not to follow back spam bots. I tend also not to follow back foreign language accounts. I personally, I speak German. I speak a little bit of French. So a French or German language account, I may or may not follow if I think it's, a real person. If it's a language I don't speak, I typically will not follow back because those will tend to glom together. So, like, if I follow one Turkish account, I'll come back the next day and there'll be 10, and then I'll follow those 10, and then come back the next day and there'll be 100, and I don't know what any of them are saying. And I don't think that they're probably genuinely fans or friends of mine, if they don't. I mean, they might speak English, but I can't tell. So I generally try and stay away from the foreign language accounts. You can do that or not as you decide. Like I said, this is all just stuff that works for me. It's not like best practices, and I'm by no means like a master Twitter or anything. Okay, so let's talk about some other stuff here. Let's say okay. So like I said, we're not really going to talk about creating an account here, but you can, if you're not happy with the way your account looks, you can go in and edit your profile. So here you have your header photo and your profile photo, just like on Facebook. Like I said, I'm more familiar with that. So you can change your your bio and all this stuff. You can put in your birthday. I don't, because I don't want anyone to know how old I am. And you can do things like when Halloween comes around, a lot of people will change their their handles. I guess it's too long for that. I was Steven Korpsanewski one year, but it looks like it's too long for that now. And I believe you can also change your handle here. But I would not do that lightly if people know you by that handle. So what you have here is, this is my name, this is my actual name. You might want to put something in there like, Mr. Poop or whatever, your pen name or your nom de plume or whatever you want to call it is. But then this guy here is what I refer to as your Twitter handle or your @. So let's talk about some things with your Twitter handle. So, okay, it looks like I got a notification in the time since I've been talking to you. Oh, I got 2 notifications. Okay, so Mirror Matter liked one of my tweets, and these 3 people followed. So she's fake, so I'm not going to follow back. He's fake. Okay, so I have 3 new fake followers. You can tell by their bios there that they're just bots. So I'm not actually going to follow any of them back. So like I was saying, we're talking about the handle. So here's one thing that I have learned. So when you're using a handle, let's say we're talking to our good friend Mary Fan, whose handle I know offhand. So let's say, hey, I am doing a video on Twitter. How cool is that? Okay, so here's the way that I set this up here. This way is actually wrong. The thing about your handle is you don't want that to be at the beginning. So let's say I tweeted this. Okay. Now, when you go to my main profile page, and I just tweeted at Mary, right? But it's not there. So that tweet doesn't show up. Now, why doesn't it show up? Because Twitter assumes that if I put Mary's handle first thing, that we're having a private conversation. Okay? So there it is. At Astrocult. Hey, I am doing a video on Twitter. How cool is that? So you can see it. It's not private in any meaningful sense, but it does hide it from your main feed. So your goal with Twitter is to have people see your discussions and potentially favorite them, potentially share them. Hopefully they go viral in some sense. So when you do this, when you put the handle first, you're doing it wrong because it's being hidden. So how do you get around that? Well, when you tweet, the easiest way, the simplest way, because of the limitations of Twitter, at a very minimum, you can put a period in front of it. So let's say this time we're going to tweet Megan Shayna Hayden, also a good friend of ours. Now this time, I've put a period in front of it. You know, ideally what you do is say, hey, how are you doing at Rain, and treat it like it's her name. But let's say we don't have room for that. We're down to, we just have one character left, and there's only 140 characters. At a minimum, you want to put that dot in front of their handle there. And so I say, hey, how is your evening? I am teaching the people to use Twitter. Okay? So now this time, when I tweet it, and we go to my main page, la-di-da, and there it is. So people will actually see that one. And you see, we're still not seeing the one we sent to Mary. We have to go there into the tweets and replies. It's not hidden. I mean, it's semi-hidden, and you don't want that. You have to bear in mind that when you're on Twitter, you want everything to be treated as though it was, public. It is public. Anybody can see it, unless you physically block them. So that's one trick. Make sure you always put the dot in front of the handle. And that will also explain why you will sometimes see the dots in front of the handles if you didn't know that's what it's for. Now let's talk about interacting in general. So in both of these cases here, I just kind of tried to start a conversation with Mary and with Megan. And given some time, they'll probably respond to me, and I'll respond back. And that's what you really want to do. You want to use Twitter to respond to conversations, jump into conversations that you find interesting, and become a part. You don't want to be rude. You don't want to hijack a conversation. But that's how you're going to become involved in Twitter here. Now, to that end, you don't necessarily have to always, be addressing somebody directly. They may just say something clever that you like and that you want to, retweet. So, let's okay, here, let's take a look at Michael Meyerhofer, another good friend of ours. Let's take a look at his account here. So, here's Meyerhofer's account, and I had a suspicion there would be something like this. So here he has, I just signed a contract with Red Dead Publishing for Winter Sea, my 5th fantasy novel. That's great! So, I'm going to retweet this. Now what happens when I retweet it is it's going to come out like as though I had tweeted it on my feed. And then I have two options. I can add a comment, which is very cool. So I'm going to say here, wow, what an awesome piece of news. Okay, so I can quote the tweet like this, and this allows you to have a whole other tweet about whatever you're retweeting, essentially. So I could go on and on and on, and we could basically start a conversation that way. So I'm going to tweet that, and when you go to my page, so here you see that Here's that thing that I just tweeted. So you see Michael Meyerhofer in kind of like a little square here. This was his original tweet. Then here's the fact that I retweeted it around it. Okay. Now let's say we want to go to, let's say we just want to do a straight retweet. Let's say we go over to my new publisher, Mirror Matter Press, and perfect. Here's something, again, I suspect it might be on here. So here's something about my new novel, Every Kingdom Divided. And I don't want to necessarily add anything to what they've said here. Okay? I'm just going to click retweet, and this time it's going to come up just as though they had sent it, with no commentary by me. So again, here you go. Here's the two different kinds of retweets. Now, what you may be asking about this little heart thing? Well, this is a like or a favorite. I guess they're calling it a like now. And we can also certainly use those. And this does nothing. I like to compare it to a dry hump. It's useless. It's pointless. All that it does is that it sends a message to Michael Meyerhofer, or in this case, see here, Mirror Matter and Meyerhofer both liked something that I sent out. And all that it does is it sends a message back to me on my feed that somebody liked it. They didn't share it with their followers, so it didn't get any new traction, so it didn't really do anything. So I always try to combine the favorite with a retweet, because at least you're sending the message back out to your followers, you're at least participating in the conversation, that kind of thing. One potential use that the favorite or the like has is when you just don't know what else to say in a conversation. So, we've all reached that point in a discussion where you're going back and forth, and you don't really have anything else to say, but you don't want the person to feel like you blew them off. So you could favorite their tweet and just to let them know, oh yeah, okay, I saw this, I acknowledged it, very cool. So here's, this is talking about a lot of the different ways that we've been dealing with stuff. I hope I haven't, gone over too much too fast or anything like that. Let's talk a little bit about using hashtags. So what I'm going to do here is, let's close this out, and we'll close out the Manage Flitter. Now here I've called up a website, Ginger Nuts of Horror, and an article that I want to, tweet out there. So this is basically going to be me generating an original tweet here. So when you grab the URL and you're ready to tweet, so I put in the URL, and that only counts as 24. I think regardless of the length of the URL, it always only counts as 24 characters. So here I'm going to say, here's a great article from, I think it's Jimbo McLeod. There we go. From Jimbo McLeod, and let's see, what was the name of the lady that wrote the article? Kaylee Marie Edwards. So, Jimbo, I happen to know his thing, and when I type it in, it pops right up. But I do not know if Kaylee is on Twitter. So let's say I want to find her. When we go to search Twitter, we'll go Kaylee. That's helpful. This is all live to tape, folks. Okay, Kaylee Edwards. Now, I can't tell offhand by any of these. There are a number of people in the universe named Kaylee Edwards. So we're going to do a search. And when we do a search, again, we can limit it to accounts. And what I'm looking for is anything in the bio that says something like, okay, well, I contribute for Ginger Nuts of Horror. Alright, so as far as I can tell, I cannot find Kaylee. Let's try Kaylee Marie Edwards, maybe. Maybe that'll do it. Here's some people talking about her. Okay, so my conclusion from this is that she does not have an account. But usually I would tag people. So again, you see here, I'm making sure not to put the handle in front. I'm putting some stuff in here. Okay, so I'm saying here's a great article from Jimbo McLeod. Let's go ahead and attribute her correctly anyway. Enjoy. Okay. So now let's talk about hashtags. So one of the most confusing things I think people find about Twitter is the use of hashtags. Simple rule of thumb is to only use 2 hashtags. Apparently, they look into this kind of thing. People do, I don't know who gets paid to do this, but people look into this kind of stuff. Apparently, 2 hashtags is the ideal number to use. So the thing with hashtags is you want to use something that's popular, popular enough that it's going to get noticed, and you don't want to misuse hashtags. So let's say I go here to my, home notifications page here, and here we see the trends, and I think this is the trends. You can set it either to world, or something more local. I think I have mine set to Pennsylvania right now. So here we have all the different stuff that's trending in Pennsylvania. PCAs, idle premiere, waste his time. Okay, now if I had something genuine to add to one of these, like now would be a good time to do it while it's trending. But if I don't, I'm going to come off like a bot or a spammer or just like an idiot, and people don't like to follow idiots. So if I said waste his time 2016, which is actually a really awful hashtag, and I wish it wasn't the best example right here, but it has nothing to do with what I'm posting. I'm posting something about zombies. So none of these trending hashtags are really very helpful here, and they're not typically going to be. So how can I determine what is going to be a helpful hashtag in this situation? Well, here's the thing. Twitter will actually fill out your hashtag for you if you've started something, and it will basically determine what's the most popular. So if you start and you put in your pound sign, and let's say I put in a Z, and it's going to say this stuff, okay, I think that's something about One Direction. I don't know what all these things are. But basically, I want to say something about zombies. So let's see if there's any good zombie, hashtags. I don't know. Zombie Showdown and Zombie Hospital don't jump out to me as anything. But it looks like zombies is a pretty good, hashtag. And let's see if there's anything good for horror. Horror Haikus Day. Well, today's Wednesday. Horror film, horror short. Okay, let's go with horror. So here we've picked out 2 hashtags. And like I said, even if you can't come up with anything, you can kind of troll around and see what pops up. If you can't think of anything else, a good one is must read. If you are a writer, am writing is a pretty common one. And then here you go, am writing horror, am writing fantasy. And Twitter's kind of obviously tailoring it to me. It knows what I tweet about. So it's probably not going to fill out yours with horror necessarily. So here we go. Here we have a tweet that's ready to send. And we'll put it out there. So basically we've gone over starting conversations, continuing conversations, retweeting stuff other people do, and generating brand new tweet. Another thing you should be aware of is about your pinned tweet here. So I pinned a tweet from 16 December about my new book, Every Kingdom Divided. I'm going to keep that pinned for a while. And what that is it shows up at the top of your feed for as long as you keep it pinned. So basically, anyone that you follow, this is what you should be putting as your best foot forward. The thing that you want to be retweeted, the thing that you want to be favorited, the thing that you want everyone to see and be the first and maybe only thing that they see about you is going to be the tweet that you have pinned. So if you are an author, you may, like I say, you most likely want it to be your most recent book. If you are some other kind of businessman or businesswoman. You want it to be something about your business, whatever. And again, here I'm using Must Read and Instant Classic and Genius, just to be ridiculous here. I did here use a piece of media because media tends to get more interaction on Twitter. So I used, my book cover here. Then I had my link, 3 hashtags, which is theoretically one too many. But as you can see, I've gotten, 24 retweets and all that kind of thing. So let's say I wanted to make this thing that we did for Ginger Nuts. If I wanted to make that my pinned tweet, all you do is come down here to the ellipsis and go pin to your profile page. I'm not going to do it right now because I don't want to scroll back down to find December 16th and repin the one that I actually want pinned. This is also where you can delete your tweets, and it's also where you can see your tweet activity. So here we see the number of impressions, engagements, and all that kind of good stuff on here. If that's the sort of thing you're interested in. There is a lot of talk about tweeting at different times of the day. And here you can actually see, this is just my stuff, but, for some reason at midnight and at noon seems to be when my stuff gets the most impressions. So maybe that means, so they do say that tweeting at lunch is good. I guess tweeting at midnight is also good. Not sure why. Or maybe that's just something that I do personally. So I think we've covered most everything that I know about Twitter. I hate to leave you hanging if I skipped anything, but I think that's about all I can really think of. And this is a huge subject. And like I said, I'm certainly not, qualified to talk about getting 1 million Twitter followers or anything like that. I would just say, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. If someone's offering to sell you Twitter followers, don't bother. It's no real value. It's much better to try and develop it organically or semi-organically. Like I said, Twitter's it can be a really valuable tool. When I think about things, I think about my sister used to put out a zine back in the 90s, and she had a distribution of, a couple hundred, hard fought and hard won. And when I think about something like, when I look at my tweet activity here, in a single tweet, I can get, 3,000 people with eyes on, 3,000 people out of 10,000 potential followers. Yeah, that's some amazing power right there. And I really don't have, a huge number of followers. Some people have, well, we saw Colbert has millions, and that sort of thing. So there you have it. That's my kind of quick and dirty look at some of my Twitter do's and don'ts and best practices, at least as far as I go. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the comments, and I'll either answer them directly or do a follow-on video if I have to. And thanks for tuning in.